Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Today we are talking about foundations. So this is another foundation summation where we are going through 16, 17-ish foundations, and we're going to go through the specs on them, my thoughts. We're also going to rank them by price, and also I will go through which ones are my favorites and why. Now, we do have a bunch of new foundations coming out, and we will have an update to this video sometime, probably closer towards the end of March after all of the new ones have been released. I've had a chance to test them. So right now I have swatches of all of the foundations that we are testing on my arms. These are going to dry so you can see oxidation. We'll do fresh swatches at the end so you can kind of see, how much oxidation occurs with each particular formula. And right now what we're going to do is go through each of these foundations alphabetically. We'll go through the specs, and while I'm showing you the specs, we're also you can view an application video so you can see what the foundation looks like on my skin. For each of these applications, I have a base of the Surat Perfectionist Primer. Cancels out any of the shine or anything from my sunscreen. It gives me a really nice even base. And that way we are able to test everything objectively. Now, also in each application, I do 2 coats on one side of the face, and that way you can kind of see the coverage level for each of these foundations. So let's get started. The first foundation is the Cle de Peau Beauté Radiant Fluid Matte Foundation. This has broad spectrum SPF 20. It is a soft matte with a radiant finish. So there's a little bit of a luminosity with this. It's not a flat matte, but it's definitely a matte foundation. It's lightweight on the skin. I would say that it's about medium coverage. It can be slightly buildable. You can go a little up or a little bit down, but I would say on average, it's medium coverage. There are 24 shades in this foundation, and it retails for $130 for 35 milliliters. And this one comes in a frosted glass bottle, so you can tell that the matte foundation is in frosted glass, whereas our sister to it, the Radiant, is going to be in a clear glass. So as I said, $130 for 35 milliliters. This breaks it down to $3.71 per milliliter. Next, we have the Cle de Peau Beauté Radiant Fluid Natural Foundation. This has SPF 25 and it comes in 24 shades. It retails for $130 for 35 milliliters, bringing it down to $3.71 per milliliter. This is a lightweight texture. It has light to medium buildable coverage. This one is radiant. So it's supposed to be a radiant, natural skin-like finish. I would say that it's definitely a dewy, radiant finish. On its own, for me, it is pretty luminous. So personally, my favorite, which I'm going to show you next, is actually mixing the two of these together. So I like to have a 50-50 mix of the Cle de Peau Radiant Matte Foundation and the Cle de Peau Radiant Natural Foundation. So I think that this gives the most natural finish. I have a little bit of luminosity from the natural one, or the Radiant Natural Foundation, plus that matte finish kind of brings down a bit of that sheen and just gives it a little bit more of a flawless skin-like finish. So my personal preference for these is to wear them mixed together. Next, we have the Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Foundation, Hydration, and Longwear. And I have this in shade BR12. This is retailing for $60 for 30 milliliters. That brings it down to $2 per milliliter. It comes in 35 shades and it has a light to medium coverage. So I would say this is on the lower end of the medium coverage spectrum. This is going to be a dewy, radiant, glowy foundation. It has a weightless texture, and again, it is pretty radiant. So this is something if you want that shine, that sheen from a foundation. Next, from Chanel, we have the #1 de Chanel Revitalizing Foundation. This is the new one that has come out with the Camellia collection, and it is available at Chanel and at Ulta. It comes in 20 shades. I have it in shade BD01. It is a buildable coverage foundation, so it goes from a light to about medium coverage. And this has a luminous finish. So this is going to have some radiance to it, but it is not as radiant or as shiny as the Healthy Glow Lait Beige foundation that we just looked at. So this is going to have more of a natural looking luminosity to it. It retails for $70 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $2.33 per milliliter. Next, we have the Chanel Ultra Latent Foundation, and there are 35 shades in this foundation. It is a full coverage foundation. I would say it goes medium to full coverage. Chanel claims that it is full coverage with a soft matte finish. And it does have a very lovely soft matte finish. I really enjoy the way this one looks on your skin because it's not a drying matte finish. So it's matte, but it has a more natural looking matte finish than some others. This retails for $60 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $2 per milliliter. The Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint Foundation comes in 12 shades. This is going to be a radiant serum foundation with skincare benefits. It is supposed to help promote anti-aging benefits, and it retails for $135 for 40 milliliters. However, it does come with a brush. The brush has a gorgeous angle to it. It's synthetic. It actually performs really, really well. I wish they would sell this brush separately because regardless of the foundation, I feel like this is a brush that would be great to have in everyone's collection. So this, again, $135 for 40 milliliters brings it down to $3.38 per milliliter. But again, you do have the brush kind of in there, and unfortunately, can't buy the brush separately or the foundation separately. The Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion Foundation. This is a water-based natural finish foundation. As a cushion foundation, the actual foundation is soaked up into a sponge, which is inside the compact. And so you are using less product at once, typically. However, you are losing some product to what is soaked up in the sponge. When you are using a cushion foundation, if you start noticing that there isn't as much foundation coming up, flip your sponge. You can do that a couple of times before moving on to a new cushion. The Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion Foundation comes in 8 shades and it retails for $128 US. It comes with one cushion already with the compact and a second cushion. So you get 2 cushions that each have 12 milliliters or 12 grams of product. So that gives you 24 milliliters total. So $128 US for 24 milliliters brings it to $5.33 per milliliter. Now, the compact for this is refillable. However, cushions are not currently sold separately. So each time you would purchase this compact with the 2 cushions inside. The Givenchy Prisma Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation comes in 30 shades. This has a lightweight, almost more serum-like texture with a luminous, more natural looking foundation. So this is going to be a dewy, fresh-faced foundation on the skin, but it is not going to be so radiant or so luminous that it looks greasy. So this is going to be just a little bit more toned down than, for example, the Chanel Healthy Glow foundation, and just a little bit more radiant than the Chanel #1 Luminous foundation. So it's kind of in between the two of those with luminosity. This retails for $49 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $1.63 per milliliter. A true bargain so far. Next, we have the Guerlain L'Essentiel High Perfection Foundation. So this has SPF 15 and it has a natural matte finish. Now, unfortunately, this foundation is not available in the United States. You can purchase it from some retailers that sell to the United States, such as Selfridges and feel unique. It comes in 30 shades. It's $60 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $2 per milliliter. Again, at the retailers that sell to the US, you will find it for various prices. So it may be a little bit less expensive than what I'm basing that on here. So there is a glow version of this foundation, which I no longer have, but that was a really great foundation as well. And it's the same price as this one. The Kogendo Aqua Foundation comes in 10 shades, and this is a breathable serum foundation. It has a thin texture with a luminous, melted in skin-like finish. So this one is going to really give you coverage without seeming like you have coverage. It really, it's a thin texture with coverage. So it really kind of glides over your skin, fills in and covers imperfections while looking like a melted in perfected version of your skin with a little extra luminosity. And this retails for $77 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $2.57 per milliliter. The Kogendo Moisture Foundation. This one here, my tube is just about out. So you can see it's a little bit runnier than usual, but if you purchase a new tube, you'll see that it's a little bit more of a creamier mousse-like texture than what I have here at the end of my tube. And this comes in 13 shades. It's a weightless, buildable coverage foundation. This goes from light to medium coverage, and it has a really skin-like finish. This is probably the most natural looking foundation out of all of the ones that I have here today. And it retails for $79 US for 20 milliliters. And that brings it to $3.95 per milliliter. Really great foundation. Next, we have the Makeup Forever or MUFE HD Skin Foundation. And this comes in 40 shades, and it has a skin-like natural finish for oily, combination, and normal skin types. It is not intended for use on dry skin. On dry skin, it will have a little bit more of a matte finish, and it will be most likely a tad drying to your skin. So this is waterproof, sweatproof, and mask friendly. Retails for $43 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $1.43 per milliliter. I have this one in shade 1N06, which was formerly known as Y218. The Sisley Phytotint Nude Foundation comes in 18 shades. It has a natural radiant finish with very sheer coverage. So this is definitely going to be lightweight on coverage, more of a skin tint than a foundation. It retails for $100 US for 30 milliliters, which brings it down to $3.33 per milliliter. This is going to be a very thin liquid serum type foundation. The Sisley Sislea Le Tint Foundation comes in 13 shades, and it is anti-aging and luminous. So this foundation is one of those skincare / foundation products, and with continued use, you are supposed to notice firming and other anti-aging benefits. And this is going to give you a luminous, softly radiant finish to your skin. It retails for $195 US for 30 milliliters. That brings it down to $6.50 per milliliter. Sisley just recently had this price increase. Prior to that, it was a little bit more affordable than this. Misuku The Cream Foundation comes in 23 shades for a melted in glow on your skin. And this has SPF that ranges from 15 to 25, depending on the shade that you are wearing. It retails for $80 US for 30 milliliters, which comes to $2.67 per milliliter. This is a really beautiful natural looking finish with a little extra luminosity, still on the subtle side, but it has a more melted in natural finish on your skin. The Westman Atelier Vital Skin Foundation is a cream foundation and stick concealer in one. It comes in 21 shades and it gives a radiant second skin natural finish on your skin. Now, this product being a foundation and concealer, it a little bit goes a long way. So you're going to use less of this product at one time than you would of any of the liquid foundations featured here. This is $68 for 9 grams of product, which brings it down to $7.56 per milliliter or per gram. All right, so I hope that was helpful, kind of seeing some specs on all of these different foundations. And I have to say that all of these foundations here, I like for certain characteristics. They're all ones that I enjoy and use. And the newest one here is the Makeup Forever. It is not the best shade for me. I do have a separate review on it. Unfortunately, it oxidizes to the point where it's just a little bit too dark for me. So I definitely need a different shade in that, but it is a beautiful finish. Now, before we go through more swatches or my favorites, let's just take a brief look at the most expensive foundation to the least expensive foundation. So the most expensive foundation, and this isn't exactly accurate, this is going to be the Westman Atelier Vital Skin Foundation, and I have shade Atelier N, and this one is the most expensive for, you know, the grams per dollar, but you actually use a lot less of this product at one time than you would these others. So it's technically the most expensive, but really you're going to get a little bit more value out of it than what the numbers indicate here. Next up, we have the Sisley-Sisley Latent Foundation. This is going to be the second most expensive foundation, or you might think of it as the most expensive. This is $6.50 per milliliter, which is very pricey. I know some people like to think of this more as a skincare product, and I have to say I used it for 6 to 8 weeks or so straight, and I did notice that my skin looked like it was in really good, healthy condition. It did seem a little firmer, whether it was because of the foundation or the skincare and the time of year and everything, it's really hard to say. You know, there are so many factors that go into how your skin is looking at a particular time. So just something to note there. So that's $6.50 per milliliter. The third most expensive is going to be the Chantecaille cushion. And again, this one's going to be a little bit misleading as well, because I actually think it actually is more expensive than what you are seeing. This comes down to $5.33 per milliliter. But the fact that you're never going to get all of the product out of a cushion, you know, you are losing product to that. Again, with all these foundation bottles, you're gonna be losing some product that from adhesion to the side of the bottle and so forth as well. So it's probably, you know, not that big of a deal, but it is just something to note. And so that's gonna be number 3. Number 4 is the Kogan Do Moisture Foundation. I've used up this whole tube. This is ready to be trashed now. I've gotten out pretty much as I can. I've got enough left for swatching today, but this comes to $3.95, followed by the Cle de Peau Matte and Natural or Radiant Natural foundations. These are at $3.71 per milliliter. Next, we have the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint Foundation. And even with the brush being factored into this price, it comes to $3.38 per milliliter, which makes this a skincare kind of foundation product, actually less expensive than some like the Cle de Peau. So just something to note there. It's not quite as expensive as you might at first think. The Sisley Phyto Tint Nude Foundation. Again, this one's more of a skin tint. This comes to $3.33. Number 8 on our list is going to be the Suku the Cream Foundation at $2.67. Number 9 is Cocondo Aqua Foundation at $2.57, followed by the Chanel number 1 de Chanel Foundation at $2.33. And then we have a tie for number 10 or for number 11 with the Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Foundation, the Ultra Latent from Chanel, and the Guerlain L'Essentiel High Perfection Foundation. These are all $2 per milliliter. So those will be tied there. And then number 12 is going to be the Givenchy Prisma Libre Skin Caring Glow Foundation. That is $1.63 per milliliter, followed by the Makeup Forever HD Skin at $1.43 per milliliter. So you can definitely get some good bargains by milliliter with these, especially if you can get these items further discounted from a sale. All right, so these are my foundation samples. They have dried. This is the level of oxidation. It has been 30 minutes since I applied these samples here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do some fresh swatches right next to all of these so you can see the color freshly. So this is the Cle de Peau Matte Foundation in I-10. So that's gonna be the difference between dry versus wet. Here is the Cle de Peau Radiant Natural in I-10. And here is the mix of the Cle de Peau Radiant Natural and Radiant Matte Foundation. So you can see how quickly some of these are oxidizing as well. It hasn't even been a minute and the Cle de Peau Matte is almost at the same color of final oxidation. The Chanel Le Beige Healthy Glow Foundation. This one here is in BR12. And you can see that there's not a whole lot of oxidation for this particular product. This one stays pretty true to color. Then we have the Chanel number 1 de Chanel Revitalizing Foundation. This is in shade BD01. You can see that's gonna be a little bit lighter. Here is the Chanel Ultra Latent Foundation in BD01. Chanel Sublimage Listens to Temp Foundation. This one is BR12. Next, we have the Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion Foundation, and this is going to be in the shade Aura, which is the lightest. And here's the Givenchy Skin Caring Glow Foundation, the Prisma Libre Foundation. This is in shade 1N95. So you can see here these fresh versus oxidized forms. Next, we have the Guerlain L'Essentiel Foundation. This is the High Perfection, and this is shade 00N. And I wear the same shade in the glow version of this as well. Here is the Cocondo Aqua Foundation in 012. Cocondo Moisture Foundation in 012. Makeup Forever HD Skin in 1N06. Sisley Phyto Tint Nude Foundation in 000N Snow. This one's a little bit too light for me, so I would go for a shade a little bit darker. This is the Sisley Sislea Latent Foundation, and this is shade 0R Vanilla. Suku the Cream Foundation, and this is going to be in shade 110. And next we have the Westman Atelier Vital Skin Foundation Stick in Atelier N. And you can see this one stays pretty true to color. There's not really much oxidation for this particular product, partly because there's not quite as much liquid. So these are my foundations. Now, as I mentioned, I do really like all of these foundations for some reason or another, but of course, I have my favorites. Now, I wanted to rank these, but it's a little hard to rank these because I really think you want to choose your foundation based on how your skin is that day. Sometimes you're going for a certain look, or sometimes it's more about the moisture content in your skin that day and so forth. So I also want to mention that I think that a good foundation really does need a primer. I am definitely a believer in a face primer because it helps prevent anything that might be in your skincare or your sunscreen from reacting with your foundations. It does help with longevity, and I think it just gives a nice smooth base to start with. Now, I don't think all primers work, and I don't think all primers are created equally. My favorites would be the Surratt Perfectionist Primer. So if my skin's feeling nicely moisturized and dewy, or my sunscreen is a little bit on the shinier side that day, this is the primer I use for it. This is the one I use probably about 70% of the time. The other primer that I really like is the Dior Forever Skin Veil Primer. If my skin's a little bit drier, I like this one, or if I'm going for a dewier look, this will give me a dewy look without being greasy or shiny, yet I don't have issues with it interacting poorly with any of the foundations here. So it works really well. I am testing a few new primers as well, so stay tuned for those. But favorite foundations, I think my favorite for every day is, I have a few favorites for every day, but an everyday, like normal thing is going to be the mix of the Cle de Peau Radiant Matte and Radiant Natural foundations. I love the 50-50 mix of these. I wear it all the time. It's one of my most used. I have to say, I very rarely use one of these foundations on its own. I almost always mix them. So when I want something radiant or I want something matte, I actually reach for other foundations compared to these separately. I love them together. I don't love them as much separately. Now, when I want a melted in, perfected, more of like I think of it as a summery look, I like to go for the Cocondo Aqua foundation. This is still going to be a favorite. I reach for it a ton during the summer months. I just think it gives a really nice natural look. Very smooth finish, and it does have a little bit of luminosity that reminds me of the summer months. But if I want something that looks incredibly skin-like, then I go for the Cocondo Moisture Foundation. I think this is the most skin-like foundation here. When you put it on, like, you know, you still see skin. So it still looks like skin. And this is actually a foundation that they use a lot in, well, a lot of these have been used a lot in like movies and TV shows and so forth, but a lot of men actors like to use this particular foundation because it does look more skin-like and less like makeup. So I just think this is a really great one, and I did use up the whole tube, and I will be purchasing another one. So it's always going to be in my arsenal. And then if I want a dewy finish, or, you know, something a little bit luminous, I want something like fresh and dewy looking, I go for the Givenchy Prisma Libre Skincare and Glow Foundation. This is one of my favorites. And yeah, I've used quite a lot of this bottle. It's one that I reach for frequently. So these are all ones that I use quite a bit. Now for matte foundations, I really like the Guerlain L'Essentiel High Perfection foundation. It's not that easy to get. So I have to say, I don't use this one quite as much though as the Chanel Ultra Le Temp foundation. When I want a matte look, this is the one that I go for. And between the two of these, I feel like the Chanel matte is a little bit of a softer matte, a little bit less drier looking on the skin than the Guerlain. So, you know, if I want a little more coverage, I go with the Guerlain, but if I want a little bit of a softer look, I go with the Chanel. So typically I use the Chanel more. If I have something I want to go to and I want my skin to look perfect and flawless, I actually go for the Suku, the cream foundation. Now, it's not the best shade for me, so I don't use it as much as I probably would otherwise, but it's still a shade that will work for me. And I think the finish of this is amazing. It's almost like a slightly higher coverage version of a mix of the Cocondo Aqua and the Cocondo Moisture Foundation. So it gives you, it's more skin-like, but it has a little bit more of that melted in look to it, and it has some added luminosity. And it again, is going to be like a medium to fuller coverage foundation. By the way, I do really like mixing the Cogando Moisture and Aqua. Those give a really beautiful finish as well. So that's a really nice mix also. And then when I want to use a stick foundation, which honestly I don't do as much during the colder months, I usually do it during the warmer months because I feel like it's easier to spread a stick foundation onto the warmer skin, and maybe I'm doing something with less makeup, so I'm just using it in sections. I like the Westman Atelier stick concealer or stick foundation. So I wear shade Atelier N, and it is my favorite stick foundation. It's actually the only one that I use. I also really like the Merit stick. I don't have that one anymore because I broke mine. But I do think that the Westman Atelier is slightly better, not necessarily in performance. I think the Merit stick performance is great, but because of the packaging and it does have a tendency, other people than I have had issues with it, like falling out of the holder. I feel like the Westman Atelier is probably just a little bit of a better bet on that. But I really like both of the products, and I would definitely pick up the Merit stick again during like the summer months when I'm using it more. So those are definitely two that I use a lot. Now, I also want to mention fragrance. Fragrance is in almost every makeup product nowadays, and there are some of these foundations that are fragrance free. So notably, the ones that are fragrance free are going to be Cogando foundations. These do not have any added fragrance. The Suku foundation is fragrance free, and they are coming out with a new foundation next week that it's going to be a liquid foundation that will be fragrance free as well. And I have to double check on this, but the Westman Atelier Vital Skin Foundation Stick, I'm not sure if this has fragrance. I can smell something and it smells a little floral, but I'm not sure if it's added fragrance or not. So I will leave that on the screen here so you can kind of see whether fragrance is added to this or not. But the Cle de Peau, the Chanel, the Givenchy, the Guerlain, all of those do have a fragrance added to them, the Makeup Forever. So just something to note, if you are looking for fragrance free, you want to look at Cogando and Suku. Those are going to be your best options. And the Chantecaille, I have to double check, but I believe the Chantecaille might be fragrance free as well. I will double check the ingredients, but I have to say that I don't notice any added fragrance, like nothing overpowering when I go to smell it. So yeah, I will leave that on the screen, but definitely if you're looking for something fragrance free, hopefully you're able to find something that works well for you. And I'm happy to say that some of my favorites are in that category. So I hope this video was helpful. Please save it as a resource. And again, we will be doing an update or part 2 to this video with the newer foundations that are coming out, like the Suku Liquid Foundation, the new Givenchy Prisma Libre Matte Foundation, the Cle de Peau Cream Foundation. So we've got a few new ones that are coming out soon, and I will see you soon with those. And again, we'll have some primer updates soon as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe and healthy. And again, share this with your friends.